Hello students, welcome to the lecture. So students, as we know that we had started the static part of various topics and we have covered till civics so far. Okay, so in this lecture, we are going to start with the economics and we will try to cover static parts of economics. Okay, so let's start this session. Okay, so when we go for economics, basically economics is divided into two parts. Economics is divided into two parts. First is macroeconomics. Second is microeconomics. Okay. So basically and broadly, economics is divided into two parts, macro and micro. Macro stands for the large scale economy. Large scale economy. Whereas micro stands for small scale economy. Okay, so what is the basic difference between macro and macro? By this, you can only get the scale, means the scope of this economics. But if I ask you simple difference, then how you are able to tell me? So basically, you can tell me about micro and macroeconomics by simple example. Like if there is a person, we are talking about the financial and economical condition, not financial, economical condition of this person only. Okay, then it is a case of micro because it is related with small area or only individuality. Okay, small area or individuality. All right, but when we are talking about a group of peoples, okay, and their economic conditions, then it is a large area or broad concern. All right, so in the micro, you only thinking about one individual, but in the second case of macro, you are thinking about many people or broad concern here. Okay, so it is the basic difference between micro and macro economics. Okay, so let's start with the macroeconomics basically. Okay, so basically in macroeconomics, first we have a term known as GDP. Basically, GDP stands for the gross domestic product. It is a fundamental economic indicator, represents a total monetary value of all goods and services produced within a country's border over a specific period of time. So basically, if we talk about the specific period of time, then basically we're talking about the year. Okay, so generally our years start with January and ends at December. Okay, it's a normal year. Okay, but when you are talking about the economy, then we always consider financial year. Okay, so financial year starts with April and ends at March. Okay, so during the time period of financial year, how many goods and services are produced within the national boundary? Within the national boundary. Okay, how many goods and services are produced within the national boundary by nationals or foreigners? Okay, whether the producer of goods and services are nationals or whether they are foreigners, but they are producing goods and services within the national boundary during a particular time period of April and March. So the total number of monetary value is known as the GDP. Just take an example, like suppose 100 goods and services are being produced and the price is 100. Okay, then what is the total value? The total value is 10,000. Okay, 100 units of goods and services produced which having value of 100. Okay, so in total total monetary value of $10,000 we have produced. So it is a GDP concept. Okay. Similarly, with GDP, there is one other concept which is known as gross national product. Okay. Also known as GNP. Gross national product, which is also known as GNP. Basically, GNP is total monetary value of goods and services produced during a particular time period only by nationals. Okay. So basically the GNP or the gross national products stands for the total monetary value of goods and services which are produced during a particular time period only by the nationals. Okay, in this condition, we do not include foreigners. Let's understand it by an example. Like for GDP, we having 100 into 100 condition, as I have told you earlier. Okay, so total GDP is 10,000. Okay, but when we go for the GNP, then just suppose 80 units are being produced by the nationals. National produce 80 units. Foreigners produce 20 units. Okay. So in this condition, we have value of 8,000. Okay. So this is the GDP and GNP. And always remember, GDP is always superior than GNP, as stated by this example. 10,000 value is greater than 8,000. Got it? What is the reason behind it? Because in GDP, we include all the goods and services produced within the boundary of the nation during a certain period of time, irrespective of nationality. Okay, now let's move forward. So GDP is one of the most widely measures of an economic size and health. GDP is typically calculated on a quarterly or annual basis and expressed in terms of countries' currency such as dollars, euros, and yen. Basically, okay. So what we have learned? We have learned that GDP is basically used to show economic strength of a country. Okay, like in this scenario, we produce 10,000. Okay, so 10,000 is what? 10,000 is the economics strength of a country. But you have to show this with respect of currency. Okay, so basically when we showing it in Indian currencies, then Indian currency is rupees. So we can say, okay, 10,000 rupees is the value. Okay, but when we're talking about USA, then might be we say it's 10,000 US dollars. Okay, so GDP is always present in the form of currency of this country. Okay, thereafter, now we have production approach. Now we are going to learn about calculation of GDP. Calculation of GDP. Okay, so first one is our production approach, which is also known as output method. Okay, so this method calculates GDP by summing the value of all goods and services produced within a country's border. Involves adding up the value added at each state of production. Other words, calculates the value of output minus intermediate consumption. Okay, so basically we could say production methods deals with all goods and services final value. All goods and services final value is considered under production approach. Alright. So basically, what is the final value? And then what is the intermediate value? So let's understand it. Okay. Suppose if there is a wheat. Okay. Wheat is transported to the miller or a farmer, from farmer to a miller. Wheat price is wheat's production cost is 100 rupees. Okay. Plus 50 rupees is the profit of the farmer, which he puts on this price. Now, miller has purchased wheat in 150, including 100 rupees as production cost and 50 rupees as profit. Okay. Thereafter, when miller sent it to the bakery, okay, then he also put 50 rupees as his profit. Now, in how much the bakery owner will purchase the wheat? In 200 rupees. Okay. Then when the bakery owner made some of the goods from the wheat and bread, you can say, okay, and then he sold it to the customer with 100 rupees profit, because in which his processing fees is also included. If you have gone to the bakery, you must have seen that they are using raw material, putting other materials on them, and then selling it, right? So that's why the processing fees is applicable during bakery case. So he put 100 rupees as profit. Now, what is the price to be paid by the customer? 300 rupees. Okay. Now you can see the good which was started with 100 rupees now having a value of 300 rupees. It means 300 minus 100, how much value has been added? 200 rupees value has been added. So this is the production approach or value added approach. Okay. Now let's come to the next point, which we said that intermediate consumption is eliminated. So what is the meaning of intermediate consumption? Just suppose the wheat is sold to the miller. What if miller, instead of selling it to the bakery, consuming it by himself in his household and any other area? So it is the intermediate consumption, because it is supposed to come from the field and reach the customer. But in between, during the miller or bakery time, it got consumed by them only. Then in this scenario, this value will not added. Only the final value, which is of 300, will be added while calculating the GDP. Alright. Now we have the income approach. So income approach calculates GDP by summing all the income generated within an economy, includes wages, salaries, profits, rents and taxes minus subsidies. Okay. So we can say in income approach, this is the formula. Basically, you can say this is the formula if you can see. Okay. So in this formula, compensation of employees, which is basically the salaries, okay, wages and other monetary terms or monetary benefits given during a certain period to the employees. All these things include in employees compensation. All right. Plus gross operating surplus, which is the profit, dividends and all the things. Thereafter, plus gross mixed income. Now, what is the meaning of mixed income? Gross mixed income. What is the meaning of mixed income? Basically, it is used for informal sectors. Okay. Or basically, you can say your rickshaw wala, auto wala, the street vendors, because they do not having a fixed amount of income. Okay. Some days they generate high, some days they generate low. So because of this, they are counted under gross mixed income group. Okay. Because they are working in informal sector and they do not have any definite source of income. Okay. Then plus taxes on production and imports. Thereafter minus subsidies. Okay, the subsidies and concessions provided by the government to these people is minus, and the amount is known as the income, and then it is used for calculation of GDP. All right. Like suppose after all these things, the income is generated about 10,000. Then 10,000 rupees will be declared as GDP. Got it? Now, let's move forward. Now we have the expenditure approach. Now we have the expenditure approach, which is also known as spending method. Okay. In this method, we discussed like the production, the value added during the phases of production from field to the customer. In this, we found that all over the income earning by the various people, various factors is considered to be GDP. But in the expenditure approach, basically, we conclude the expenditure, or you can say the spending of a people. Okay. This is a simple principle of GDP, like in which we say, if people paying or spending, then they must be consuming things. All right. If a people or person is paying or spending, then he must be consuming something. Like if there is a person who earns rupees 8,000, okay, and after a few days he has only 4,000 rupees left with him, then these 4,000 must have been spended or expended on some things while consumptions. Okay, so that is the basic principle behind the expenditure approach. And the next and foremost principle in expenditure approach is that the total spending amount is total value of goods and services. Okay, so the total spending amount is total value of goods and services. So it is a expenditure methods basic approach. Okay, like if people expended rupees 10,000 on consumption of various things during a certain time period, then this 10,000 was what? It is the total value of goods and services which were being produced during the consumption. Okay, so this is the formula: C plus I plus G plus X minus M. Okay, just write down the formula: C plus I plus G plus X minus M. Now here C represents the consumption by household, means the normal people. All right. I represents gross private domestic investment. Okay. G represents government spending. X represents exports of goods and services. M represents imports of goods and services. Okay. Thereafter, now we have types of GDP. So basically we have nominal GDP and also we have real GDP. There are two types, nominal and real. Okay. So let's discuss them. First, we have the nominal. Measured in current market prices without adjusting for inflation, reflects the total monetary value of goods and services produced at a price prevailing during the measurement of period. So basically, if we go back to the previous formula, what we have considered, 100 into 100 is equal to 10,000. So that was a total value of GDP, in which 100 units were the production and this was the price. Okay, but in nominal GDP, it only measures the final monetary value, whether it's a inflation or not. So what do you mean by inflation? We will learn about it in the upcoming lectures. Okay, till then just remember, during the inflation, the prices are getting high. Okay, so this is the inflation, like from rupees 10, now you have to pay rupees 20. So it is an example of inflation. Got it? Now come to the question. Like during first time it was about this, but during the next time it was about 100 units into 120. Now GDP increased to 12,000. This is the unit. This is the price. So this will be the picture in front of you when you calculate the nominal GDP. Now what do you think? You will think that we have increased 2,000 value in our production. It means that our production of goods and services is increasing. But on ground, what is the picture behind it? The picture is your units are still the same. Instead of unit, your price has been increased. In first instance, you had to pay 100 rupees. Next, you have to pay 120 rupees. Okay, so it is the nominal GDP. All right. Thereafter, now come to the real GDP. Real GDP adjusts nominal GDP for inflation or deflation, allowing for a more accurate representation of an economic's growth or contraction over time. Okay, so basically in real GDP, what we use base year. Now, what is the meaning of base year? Base year is basically the year in which there are no many economic fluctuations. No many economic fluctuations are happened. So this year is termed as a base year. Okay, so the prices of the base years are taken for calculation of GDP. Okay, like you can say it is the first picture. Okay, now in the second picture, what we saw that units were remaining same, but the prices got high, due to which there is a change in GDP. So it is on the basis of nominal GDP. But what the real GDP will do, it will take the price of base year. Like the price of base year may be 80 rupees. Okay, or you can say maybe 100 rupees, or it is the same. So the outcome will be as same as it was. Okay, so by this you can see if there is a fluctuation of 2,000 in the final value of GDP, then the reason is not increase in the production but increase in the price. So that's how the real GDP and nominal GDP defines. Okay, thereafter we have per capita GDP. It is calculated by dividing the total GDP of a country by its population, provides an estimate of the average income or economic well-being per person in a country. So basically what we do in this, we do total GDP divided by total population. Okay, so you can say, suppose if there was 10,000 value and 100 people are there, then the per GDP is 100 rupees. It means that if the country altogether produce rupees 10,000 worth during a certain time period, so everyone will get rupees 100 rupees as its share. Okay, but this is the only hypothetical condition. It is basically used to determine the well-being per person in a country, but it is not so real or realistic in modern times, or you can say in ground reality. Okay, thereafter if we move forward, now we have inflation. In this lecture, I'm just going to give you the overview of inflation, because we will have a discussion over inflation in our upcoming lectures. Okay, till then just remember, inflation is downfall in purchasing power. Okay, whenever there is a downfall in purchasing power, it is the inflation. Okay, and how we can justify it? Basically, we could say, like if you are earning rupees 100 rupees, in 100 rupees you can buy 4 items: item A, item B, item C, and item D. Item A is of rupees 25, item B is of rupees 25, item C is rupees 25, item D is rupees 25. Okay, so in 100 rupees you can buy 4 items, but in the second condition, again your income is 100 rupees, but now you can only buy A and B because their price have been increased. Okay, so in this condition, your purchasing power is declined because in the first instance, you can purchase 4 items with the same income, but in next, you can only purchase 2 items into same income. So it is the example of inflation. Now, let's have a look on causes of inflation. So basically, the first is demand pull inflation, when the customer demanding things high, price of goods and services goes up. So the first case is demand pull inflation. Okay. So how the demand of a product affects its price, we will discuss it in the upcoming lectures. Till then, just remember, whenever there is a high demand, the price will start rising up. Okay. So the first condition is demand pull inflation, in which the people start demanding certain goods and services a lot. Because of this, their prices goes high and the inflation starts. The second condition is cost push inflation. It is driven by an increase in production cost. Just suppose if rupees 100 was my production cost for 10 units, it means rupees 10 per unit was my cost. Okay, but now rupees 120 is my cost for 10 units. Now you can say it's rupees 12 per unit cost I am having. Okay, and if I go to this side, then now you can see the internal cost of production is going high. So what effect it will have? It will have an effect of final price. Okay, just suppose if 10 rupees was a per unit cost or rupees 5 was a per unit profit and I was producing 10 units, so 150 was my profit. 150 was the final price including my profit. In the second case, if rupees 12 is the internal production cost and rupees 5 is my profit, then it's become 70. And now when it's multiplied with 10 units, then 170 is the cost. Now what happened here? The cost has been increased. Okay. So now you can say the inflation is rises up. Thereafter, we have built-in inflation. Type of inflation sometimes called wage price inflation, when workers demand high wages to keep up with their rising prices. Okay. So basically it is a condition when the purchasing power of people goes down. Like in this scenario. In this scenario, I have told you in rupees 100, you can buy 4 items. A, B, C, D, each of cost rupees 25. But in the second scenario, in rupees 100, you could only buy 2 items. So what you will do, ask your boss or your management, whatever place you will working on. Okay, you will ask them to increase your salary so that you can cope up with the high price. Okay, so this is the example of built-in inflation. Now let's move forward. Now we have measuring inflation. So basically inflation is typically measured using various price indexes like the consumer price index and the producer price index, and also used as wholesale price index. So what are these indexes? I will tell you in the upcoming lectures. Till then, remember, inflation is measured by 3 factors: CPI, consumer price index; PPI, producer price index; WPI, wholesale price index. All right. The CPI tracks the average change in prices paid by the consumers for a basket of goods and services, represent the typical consumption patterns for a household. Till now, you can just read this definition because as I have told you, we will have an in-detail discussion over CPI, WPI and PPI in our upcoming lectures. Alright. Whereas the PPI deals with the producer's perspective, measures changes in the average selling prices received by producers, including manufacturers, farmers and other sectors. Okay. Thereafter, we talk about the effects of inflation. First, erodes purchasing power. Your purchasing power goes low. As we have seen in rupees 100, we were buying 4 items. But in second case, in rupees 100, we were only able to buy 2 items. Okay. Thereafter, uncertainty. Because high or unpredictable inflation can create economic uncertainty. Because when people will see that their purchasing power is going down and they are not able to buy even the things of basic necessity. So there is a condition of turmoil, or you can say there will be a condition of chaosness. Alright. Thereafter, the interest rate. The central banks often adjust interest rate in response to inflation. Basically, interest rates provides to the loan. Okay. And how it will affect the inflation, we will have a discussion over it in the upcoming lectures. Till then, just remember, whenever there is an inflation, central banks always increase interest rates. Alright. Interest rates. Alright. So students, in this lecture, we have covered several topics on the macroeconomics. In the next lecture, we will try to cover some more topics on the static part of economics. Till then, just revise all the facts so that you will be able to cope up with the things in the upcoming lectures. Okay, so let's end this lecture with these notes and thank you.